Wisdom Wednesday. Thank you so much for tuning in and for choosing to spend some of your time with me. I'm Maria Milagros, and this is a little space I like to share different tips, tools, techniques, nuggets, stories, anecdotes, suggestions. Think about it like this. When you go to a buffet, you don't eat everything on the buffet. Sometimes you're in the mood for a certain thing. That's what you eat, whatever fills and satisfies you. That's what these videos are. They are just me adding to the buffet of techniques and tools that you can use to move the needle of your life 1 degree, 10 degrees to healthier and happier, whatever that means for you right now at this time. So this month, during the month of March, we're talking about relationships. And today in particular, I want to talk about boundaries. And I always think about those Chinese karate movies I used to watch when I was younger with like Bruce Lee and stuff, and putting hands up like this, like letting you know this is coming for you. Boundaries, as I lose my voice. So setting boundaries is a healthy part of a relationship because it's a way that we can create and cultivate parameters around what is and isn't healthy for us, while also making sure that we remember that other people aren't mind readers, right? They're not mind readers, and most people are truly doing the best they can with what they know how based on their experiences, biases, and filters. If I go to 2 different types of people who grew up differently and had different life experiences and ask for advice, I'm probably going to get 2 different types of advice. One is not right or wrong. They are giving me their advice from their filters, from their experiences, from their biases. And because we're all doing that all the time, it's really important that we make sure that we are verbalizing and setting those healthy boundaries in our relationships, because people aren't mind readers and they might not actually know that they are crossing a line because they didn't know the line existed, because in their experience, what line? What are you talking about, right? So it's really important that we take responsibility for honoring our own boundaries and then verbalizing those. So to make this kind of quick, it goes like this. In order to set a boundary, you have to, 1, know what you want, right? Be very clear and define what is it that you want. I always like to start with, why do I want this? Do I want this because I need to control them? That's my ego in charge. I need to work through that. Or do I want this because it feels healthier for me at this time in my life, and this is what could benefit me and keep us in a healthy dynamic, right? Why do I want this? What do I want? Get very clear about what it is that I want. And then the next step, so the first is the why and the what, all up in here. Defining what I want and why I want it. Okay. The second thing that I would do is communicate. I would let the other person know very clearly. Now, something that's really important before you even set boundaries is a continuous practice of self-awareness, which we talked about at the beginning of the year, and I talk about over and over and over, because if we're not paying attention to what is happening within us, how we feel, how we're responding, how we're moving through the world, what's happening in the different arenas of our lives, and how we can recalibrate in order to get back to healthy and happy, then where do we even go from there if we have no idea, right? So first we have to practice self-awareness so that we can even recognize when there is a concern. And then we also have to practice our communication skills so that when the time comes to deliver that boundary, we're not doing it in a way that is a fight. I should not have to fight for my boundary. I should just be able to communicate my boundary. And if I'm better practiced at my own self-awareness and my own communication skills and assertiveness, then I'm going to deliver that in a way that can be heard and or understood. And again, not everybody is going to be able to really receive the information the way that you're delivering it, because they have their own experiences, biases, and filters. But when we deliver it in a way that's like edible, it's more digestible for the other person. So going back to boundaries. 1, define what you want and why you want it. And I would define the why for myself. I don't necessarily need to share that with everybody. What needs to be shared is what is it that I want, right? Number 2 is to communicate that to the other person, because nobody's a mind reader. So you have to let them know. I would recommend using the sandwich technique. If you don't know what that is, I'll add it here at the end of this video. It'll be up here up top somewhere. So that way you can practice the sandwich technique and using that to deliver what your boundary is to the other person. The other thing that I would recommend is to not over justify your boundary. A lot of times, especially as women, we tend to say, no, because, and this whole thing, you don't need to go into all that, right? If the answer is no, then it's no. If the answer is yes, then it's yes. If you want to share based on your relationship and your dynamic, that's fine. But don't feel like you have to. And sometimes over defining or over complicating the issue gives the other person what they believe to be loopholes. So if I'm just very straight to the point, I'm very clear, here's my boundary, I'm very clear about defining what it is, I know exactly what it is, I'm communicating that to you, boom. The other thing that's really important is that when we set a boundary, we also have to be prepared to follow through with some sort of consequence. And I use the word consequence because I can't really think of another word to use besides consequence, but the reality is that consequences are neither good nor bad. They're the results of the action, right? It's like cause and effect. If I throw this ball, it's going to hit the floor and bounce. It's a ball, right? It's going to do what it does. That's the consequence of me throwing the ball. It's neither good nor bad until I decide that it is, right? So the word consequence, I want to be very clear about that. But what is the consequence for your boundary being violated? Is it on a levels? Is the first time the boundary is violated, you recognize that people need a little more time and they need a little more reminders because they're learning something brand new about you and this boundary that didn't exist before now exists? And you reiterate the boundary, you remind them seriously, assertively, simply. Is the next level of that consequence maybe you tell them you need some space? Is the final level of that consequence to decide that you're no longer going to be in each other's lives, right? You get to decide what is the consequence. But without a consequence to follow through, you're just declaring these boundaries, and because you're not following through with them, they're not really boundaries. They're more like light suggestions, right? So we want to make sure that when we're setting boundaries, we're very clear about what that means, and that if someone violates the boundary, we very clearly let them know that they violated, reiterate the boundary, and then set whatever the next consequence is going to be. Something that's really important for people pleasers is to understand that you are going to feel guilt and or these feelings of perhaps shame for setting boundaries, because your program and your practice for so long is to gain the approval of others and to do that by any means necessary. So when you start to set healthy boundaries, it feels so disconnected from who you know yourself to be that you actually feel guilty or like you have something to feel bad about. You don't. Boundaries are healthy, they are important, and they are necessary, right? Because again, no one else can know what our boundaries are unless we declare them, because people are not mind readers. A personal example that I like to give is, and I've shared this one before, boundaries can be in all different arenas of life too. I had this relationship with someone in my family who was always borrowing money but never paying me back. And then I looked at my money and I realized I need my money. I need my money back. So I would go to this person, text them, hound them. They wouldn't respond, but they would reach out when they needed more money. And then they would use all these excuses about how they needed milk or they needed diapers or whatever. And I had this, part of my identity was I helped take care of my family. So, and I would say that all the time so people knew that that was a thing for me. This one particular person knew that that was a thing for me, always reaching out, and then would say, oh, I need this for the kids or that for the kid or da-da-da-da, right? So I would give money. And then one day I realized, like, the only person really violating this non-existent boundary is me, because I never created it. So I have to take some ownership for the fact that I'm participating in this dynamic and I'm consistently giving this person money, knowing that their pattern is to not pay me back. That's mine. I need to own that. I can't wait for other people to be different for me to feel better. If I want things to be different in my life, for me, for my dynamics, I have to be willing to make some changes. So next time the person called me and asked me for money, I said no. Oh my gosh, she lost her damn mind. She was cussing and swearing and acting a fool, and I hung up on her. She called me back. She was leaving me nasty voicemails. And when I finally talked to her again, I said, what do you need? She said, diapers. I said, good, I'll go get you diapers. And I'll go get them and I'll go drop them off. Oh, she was so mad. She didn't want me to get her diapers. She wanted the money. I'm not giving you money anymore. She didn't talk to me for a while. And I had to be okay with her not talking to me for a while, because one of the things that she did on the voicemail was, you said you would always be there for your family. Ooh, she was coming back at me with my own stuff. Okay, cool. I'm still not doing it. I'll buy diapers if that's what you need, but I'm not giving you money, period. And I had to hold the line no matter how hard it felt, right? Eventually, months later, she got her act together and started learning how to manage her own money and stopped frivolously spending and bought her prioritized stuff first before she bought her other stuff. And then eventually, like a year and some change later, she apologized to me for the way she had treated me. Here's what I learned. Had I not set that boundary for myself and not taken my own responsibility for my money in that situation, I would have been the one to have to blame, and I'm the one that has to deal with not having the money, right? Also, that was one. Had I not set that boundary, I would not have given her the platform to figure out another way to get her money, which led to her figuring out how to budget and figuring out how to manage her money in a safer way, right? In a healthier way for her and her family's dynamic. So I didn't just do me a favor by setting my boundary. I did her a favor as well. This is why boundaries are really, really important. I recommend start small with small boundaries. You will not talk to me that way. People don't talk to me that, right? Start those kind of boundaries, and then you can grow as you get stronger in your assertion, as you get stronger in your communication skills, as you get stronger in your own self-awareness to even recognize that makes me really mad. It always has, and I never realized why, because now I need to set a boundary, right? And if you need help setting boundaries and you're looking for a life coach or someone to help you in that way, it's also what I do. I am a speaker, coach, and an author. So you can reach out to me at my website, www.mariamilagros.net. Okay, that's all I have for you for today. If you know someone who can benefit from this, please share it. If you haven't already, subscribe to my channel and you'll get one of these in your box every week. And I'm sending you light and love in hopes that you're setting all the boundaries that you need to create healthy parameters for yourself. Your mental health, your physical health, your emotional health, your financial health, your sexual health, and otherwise. Peace.